So let us look at some commonly used functions in Excel and the calculations that they can perform. We'll also be taking a look at their syntax, that is the way that the functions should be written. The first function is average. Now the average is calculated by first finding the sum of the values and then dividing that sum by the number of values that you have. So in Excel, you have a function which allows you to quickly calculate the average without you having to first calculate the sum and then dividing by the number of values. So the average function is written this way. That's the name in front, equal to sign, name, and then the parenthesis. And inside the parenthesis, you can have a range or numbers. So you can enter the numbers manually in the function itself, or you can use cell addresses, or you can select a range. Okay. So the average function can be used this way, is equal to average, and then let me select a range here. So I'm just going to select this range. Okay, you can use the mouse, left click on the first cell and then drag the mouse, or you can use the keyboard to select the range. So as you can see, the range is C3 to G3. So those are the cells which I have in the range. I close the bracket and I enter. So that's the average of all these numbers here. So as I told you, you can use the average function with a range, with cell addresses, or by entering the numbers yourself. Okay, so like average, all these functions that you see here, average, count, LCM, max, min, product, sum. Okay, so all these functions can have numbers as arguments, it can have cell addresses as arguments, and I can have a range of cells as arguments. Now the next function is count. Now let's see what the count function does. Okay, so let's say we have this data here. I'm just going to use the count function in this cell is equal to count, and then okay, let me use it with the cell addresses here, comma. Okay, so did you notice what the count function did? It counted the number of cells which have values in them. Yes, so how many arguments were there? 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and all 5 cells have values. So that's what the count function does. It calculates the number of cells which have values in them. Okay, let's try that once again. Let me enter a text value. Okay, now let me use the count function again. This time I'll use the range. Okay, instead of the cell addresses, I'll use the range. So left click on the first cell, hold, drag. Okay, so now I'm selecting the range all the way up to this text value here. So that means that it is also selected. Now what do you think the count function will return? Do you think it will return 6 because now we have 6 cells with values in them in the range? Let's just try that. It's still showing up as 5. Now the count function is used to count the number of cells with only numeric entries in them, that is with numbers in them. So even though this cell H7 is in the range, but since it has a text value, it is ignored. The count function only calculates the cells with numbers in them. Alright, so please remember that. The next, as the name suggests, LCM calculates the lowest common multiple of the given numbers. Okay, so LCM, open the bracket, select the range or the cell addresses, okay, and then close the bracket. And if you notice, 120 is the multiple of all the other numbers that are there, so the LCM will come to 120. So that's how you use the LCM function. Next is the max and min functions, which we've already used in the previous examples. Okay, so is equal to max, select the range or the cell addresses, and the max function will calculate the largest value in the specified range. So that's 324, as you can notice in this range. Okay, in the same way, the minimum function will calculate the least value in the given range, and as you can see here, the least value is 235, so that is what is being returned. Okay, the next function is product. The product means the result after multiplication. Okay, so that's what the function does. It calculates the product, or it multiplies the given numbers. So this is how you use it, is equal to product. Oh, I've selected the wrong function here. So product, and then you select the range or the cell addresses. Okay, and then it will multiply all these numbers. So that's 3 2s are 6, 6 5s are 30, 34s are 120, and 120 into 1 is 120. So that's the answer I'm expecting, and that's what is being returned. The next function, sum, is again, we've already used this in the previous example. As the name suggests, sum calculates the sum is the result after addition, so it adds and it gives you the total of the values. So is equal to sum, then you select the range, close the bracket, and it's giving me the total value of the numbers in these cells. Okay, so now we have some new functions here. This is mod. Mod stands for modulo. So as you can see, the syntax of mod is equal to, you have the name of the function, that's mod, and then inside the parentheses you have two arguments. One is the number, and then the second argument is the divisor. So please remember that the arguments in these kind of functions have to be entered in their proper order. Okay, so what the mod function does is it calculates, or it divides the first argument by the second argument, and it returns the remainder. All right, so the mod function is used to calculate the remainder. Let's see how this works. So again, with mod you can again have use numbers directly, or you can use cell addresses. So in the first case, I'll just use numbers directly in the function. So let's divide. The first argument is the number that is to be divided. So I'll just put 12 there, and I will divide it by 6. So if you divide 12 by 6, what is the remainder that you get? You don't get any remainder, because 6 divides 12 completely, so the remainder is 0. Okay. In the same way, you can use mod function with cell references or cell addresses like this. So let's divide 10, that's in cell C31, comma, by cell D31, that's 3. And so 10 divided by 3, 3 3s are 9. So the remainder should come to 1. All right. So please remember that the function arguments have to be written in the proper order, because see, if I edit this function and I don't write the proper cell addresses, okay, in the correct order, so what happens now? If I write D7, that is D31, sorry, D31, comma, C31, now 3 will be divided by 10. So as you know, 3 cannot be divided by 10, and it will give me the remainder as 3. So 10 zeros are 0, and we get the remainder as 3. Next function is power, and inside the power function you have arguments, number, and power, again in their proper order. So what the power function does, it raises this number, that's the first argument, to the power specified by the second argument. All right. So again, you can use the power function with numbers directly or with cell addresses. So power, okay, so let's do 4, comma, 2. So that means that it is 4 square, or 4 to the power of 2. So that's 4 into 4, which is 16. Right. Next, let's just calculate. Let's just use the power function with the cell addresses. So I'll just use 2, comma. So that means 2 is the number which is to be raised to the power 3. So that's 2 cube, which is 8. So that's how you use the power function. Next function is quotient, and here you have two arguments. One is the numerator, that's the first argument, and the next is the denominator. So the numerator will be divided by the denominator, and as you know, quotient is the result after division, so that's what it returns. All right, so is equal to quotient, let's say 10 will be divided by 5. So 5 2s are 10, so your quotient is equal to 2. In a similar way, you can also use quotient with cell addresses. So let's just divide this C40 or C39, okay, by D39. All right, so that's 20 divided by 6. Now 6 does not divide 20 completely, and you get a remainder 2. 6 3s are 18, and you get the remainder 2. But the quotient function does not return the remainder. It just returns the maximum value of the quotient that you can get. So that's 6 3. So 6 3s are 18, so quotient is 3. So if you want the remainder, then you have to use the modulo function. Okay, so this is how the round function works. It takes in a number and then checks the second argument, that is the number of digits. So what it does is, if you have a number with a decimal part, that is numbers after the decimal point, then it checks the number of digits and reduces the number of digits to that which is specified in the function. So if you don't understand, I'll just demonstrate that for you. So is equal to round, okay, this number. Now let's say I want only 3 numbers after the decimal point. So I don't want that 8. So I'll just put 3 there, and now it's going to return that number reduced to only 3 decimal digits. So it has rounded it off. So does that mean that it has removed 7? No, actually it has removed that 8. So when you're rounding off that 8, you check whether that number is equal to 5 or more than 5. So if it is equal to or more than 5, then the last digit increases by 1. So that's why you're getting that 8. Okay. So let's try that again. Let's reduce that number further. So let's have only two decimal let's have only 2 digits after the decimal point. So I'll have to specify the number of digits as 2, the second argument as 2. So now you get 1234.57. So again, has it removed that 6? No, because now it has removed that 78. Okay, so 7 is bigger than 5, so this 6 gets increased by what? 1. So that's 1234.57. Let's do that further. Round, say I want only one number after the decimal point, so that's what I specify there in the function, and there you get 1234.6. Now again, this 6 is being checked when it is being removed. So since it is bigger than 5, this 5 in front is increased by 1, and that's why you get 1234.6. Okay, now the last one, let's remove all those numbers. So I don't want any numbers, so that's 0. So let's just do that, and that's 1 2 3 5. So I've removed everything. So why did that 4 change to 5? Again, when this 5 was removed, it is equal to 5, so this 4 gets increased by 1. Okay, so that's how the round function works. Okay, so the next function is sqrt, that's short for square root. Now, do you know what a square is? Yes, if you multiply the same number, if you multiply a number with itself, then you get the square. So that's 1 into 1 is 1, so 1 is the square of 1. 2 into 2 is 4, so 4 is the square of 2. And 9 into 9 is 81, so 81 is the square of 9. Okay, so the reverse is the square root. So if 81 is the square, then 9 is the square root. If 25 is the square, then 5 is the square root. Okay, so this function calculates that square root of the number. So as you can see here, there's 121 here. Now 11 into 11 is 121. So this function will calculate the square root of this number, that's 121, and it will return 11. 12 into 12 is 144. So 144 is the square of 12, and the square root of 144 is 12. So that's how the square root function works. The next function is a text function, len, L-E-N, that's short for length. So this function calculates the length of a text or a string. What do you mean by the length? It means the number of characters in that text or string. Okay, so characters means your alphabets. Okay, so L-E-N as the function. Let's just use this text here. So you don't have to use the quotation marks here. I'm just selecting that cell, so no quotation marks. All right, so that's returning 8. So let's count 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8. So that's correct. Okay, so if I want to use the length function with an argument that you can enter directly, you can do something like this. So let's say history. Okay, now here I need to enter the quotation marks. Okay, and I need to enter the equal to sign as well. So when I'm entering the text directly in a function, then I have to use the quotation marks. When I'm referring to a text that is in a cell, I don't need to use the quotation marks. I just use the cell address. So this is going to return 7. So let's count the number of characters in history. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. All right, so let's join these two values. Is equal to, I hope you have not forgotten the concatenate function. This comma this. Okay, computer applications is equal to, now let's count the length of this text value. So that's 20. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20. All right, now let me just put a space in between those words, those two words. So again, you use the quotation marks to enter the space as a third argument. Okay, now see what happened. The length automatically changed to 21. So even though the number of alphabets that you see here is 20, the length function also takes into account the space that is there, which I just entered between those words. So that is why your length calculated to 21. Okay, so please remember that the length function also includes your space. Now the next function is int. Int stands for integer, so it changes any number like a decimal number, okay, or a floating point value to a integer. So that's a number without the decimal part. Okay, as you know, integers are all positive numbers, all negative numbers, and including the 0, but they do not include fractions or decimal numbers. Okay, so here I have a decimal number 34.67. So if I use the int function, okay, what it does is it removes the decimal part of the number, okay, and just gives 34. But like the round function, okay, when it removes the decimal part, it does not increase the value of the number here. So even though here there's 6, this 4 does not get increased by 1, and it still remains 34. And the last function is today. So using the today function, if you want to enter a date in an Excel sheet, you can enter the current, that's the today's date in the Excel sheet using the today function like this. So the today function does not have any arguments, it just has the parenthesis, and you enter, and that's today's date, 10th August 2020.